the concept of sleep.
The concept of sleep. It's completely overrated, and I really wish there was a pill for it that we could. All right, so we're now broadcasting.
There is a pill, by the way.
There is an anti-sleep pill?
Yeah, it's called Adderall.
Yeah, look what it did to Tiger Woods.
Vitamin ADD.
I'm just saying. I'm sorry, that was a bad joke.
Yeah. Heather, are you on a speakerphone?
I am,
Yeah.
but I will put myself on mute. So.
Okay. Yeah. You're very echoey. But thanks for participating. So technically, in about 1 minute, it's going to be 10. It's going to be 10:10 a.m. on the West Coast. So it'll be 10:10 10:10. And this is kind of cool because we just finished a crazy 6-week stint that started back in August when I got on stage in San Francisco and I said, "Hey, what if we do a thing called Geeks Without Borders?" and now we are here with Geeks Without Bounds, with a name change and having visited. It's 13. Is Shannon on?
I'm here.
So how many cities did we visit in the last 6 weeks? We did a count on that.
Yeah, hold on. I'll do it in my head. Continue.
So it was San Francisco. We started in San Francisco. Technically, if we include the two announcements that I did, so San Francisco at the 140 Characters Conference, I got in front of the crowd there, and I said, I played Piano Man, and I said, wouldn't it be nice if we could use the power of geeks for good, and
instead of for evil.
That other voice there is Ryan. He produces the podcast that we've been doing for the past few years, and these are his lovely studios that he's let us use.
Second class geek.
He's a geek of a different sort, but he wins me over because he sees things way ahead of time. We need to talk about diaspora as well.
I'll tell you real quick before we get too far off it. How much of a geek I am. I was awake and watching Greenwich Mean Time 10:10:10:10.
Oh, really?
This morning, yeah.
Wow.
Waiting for the Green Poison iPhone jailbreak to be released, which was supposed to be released at 10:10 on 10:10:10.
And did it get released?
No!
It didn't?
No! Bastards. So pissed.
Wasn't there supposed to be an Ubuntu release today as well, Chris?
You know, I'm hearing lots of releases today, so I'm having a hard time keeping track of all of them. It's logical. This is the ultimate day, right?
Yeah. So anyway, we started this thing in San Francisco immediately, and one guy who wasn't able to participate today, but the very first guy that kind of responded to me when I said this was a man named Ethan Zuckerman, and Ethan sent me an email that was sitting in my inbox before I even sat down after talking at the 140 Characters Conference.
It's the guy that invented Facebook, right?
No, that would be that would be a different Zuckerman.
Oh.
But no, Ethan Zuckerberg, right? Ethan Zuckerman founded the Geek Corps, and modeled after the Peace Corps. And what they did was, back in 1999, started training geeks, mostly college kids, to get them ready to ship to developing countries and set up networks and computers and train people. He did that for a while, and then said that it kind of got out of control and costs got out of control, and so he actually left the project in 2004. But he sent me, we exchanged several emails, and he said, hey, if you're really going to do this right, you need to talk to the right people. And so he pointed me in a direction, and I don't know where or what we would be doing if he hadn't done that, but I'm certain that I would not be sitting here having done what we just did. And so the next step was going to Seattle at Gnome Decks, and that's where I met Willow. And unfortunately, I don't think Willow's going to be able to join us because Willow, much like myself, has been very sleep deprived. And I just got off the phone with her, and we had a agreement that if she were to speak in public right now, it would not be a good thing. She stayed up almost all 24 hours for the hackathon that we just held that ended this morning, and for having come off this tour. And so from Seattle we went to Los Angeles, and then actually back to San Francisco. Shannon joined us from Bali along the tour in Los Angeles, and we spoke at a hackerspace called Crash Space in Los Angeles. That was our first one. And then we started visiting other hackerspaces. These are hackerspaces, for those people who don't know, are groups of hackers and individuals, people who make stuff. Mm-hmm. Usually, it's kind of like a health club for creative types. Instead of workout machines, they've got blow torches and soldering stations, and they have classes on how to learn how to sew.
Like Bally's for people in Bali?
Right. So I can hear you. Yeah. Okay. Maybe you need to turn yourself up. So we went from hackerspace to hackerspace, and we drove from LA to San Francisco, and then we flew to Detroit, visited groups at I3 in Detroit. We drove then to Chicago and visited Pumping Station 1. There we met a guy who heads up Bucket Works, and he actually has been helping us along the way, James Carlson, and I'm hoping that we're going to get to talk to him today too. After that, we went to Louisville and visited LVL1, Level 1 in Louisville. Atlanta, we went and visited Freeside. Then we weren't done. Decided we needed more.
Hell no, we ain't done.
No. Normal geeks would have said that was enough, but not us. So then we went to New York and visited Alpha 1. We went to Maker Faire as well. And DC, Hack DC, visited a group there. Saw Sideshow Dan. And
just hacking your way around the lower 48, huh?
Absolutely. Then we went to Boston, and while I was there,
International Conference.
Yeah, there was the ICCM, the International Conference of Crisis Mappers. While we were in D.C., I met with Heather from Crisis Commons, and forged a friendship and an alliance there. And then the Crisis Mappers Conference was really cool because I met a lot of people that are doing really good stuff, and it made me understand deeply that that we're not alone in the efforts to use technology to help people. It was very, very heartening to see. And so after Boston, where did we go? Oh, then we flew across the country, went to Portland, and visited Cyborg Camp, and then Seattle for Jigsaw Renaissance, and then ended back at the 140 Characters Conference just a few days ago in Los Angeles. Immediately headed back to Orlando because I wasn't busy enough. I had to fill in for Mark and Lauren at the Red Fox, so I played piano the last couple of nights.
Are you telling me that the 140 conference was going on the entire time that you're playing bounce around the map?
No, they do. There's multiple conferences. They did one in San Francisco, and then a month later they did one in Los Angeles.
Huh.
So yeah, Jeff Pulver, who puts on those conferences, did a great job of helping promote this along the way, and let us have his stage, and actually let me play some songs. And sounds like we just lost someone on the conference line. So anyway, it's been a long and winding road. The last 24 hours, we've had over 100 developers participating in the first ever global hackathon to help with building applications for crisis situations. And you guys are going to hear some beeps on as people come on and off from the conference line. So, amazing that we had so many participants. I think over 40 different groups, teams participated, and I saw at one point we had over like 60, 70 people in on the chat or on the video stream. And we had some really cool apps that got developed. Have you ever heard of crisis mapping?
No, I have not. What is crisis mapping?
Well, let me tell you what crisis mapping is. I hadn't really heard of it either, but it's kind of like Foursquare, except instead of like checking into a restaurant and saying, who you're with, it's like checking into your house and saying that it has crumbled down to the ground. So it's geolocating an incident. It's funny because I didn't even realize it until recently that the app Tweet3PO that I've talked to you about before is kind of a crisis mapping app of sorts. It's not really crisis mapping, but it's incident mapping, where it takes incidents that are called into the police department and takes the address and geolocates it, puts it on a map, on a pin, and then you can report on that data later on. Well, when big events happen, like a earthquake in Haiti or a tsunami in the Indian Ocean, you get a
Sarah Palin book release.
Exactly. I think they have an app for that. That you can that all of this data starts pouring in people who need help. And they may can need medical attention, they could need fire, they could need
sure.
Could be anything really. And so a lot of times, more recently, this data comes in free-form text messages. And so they'll come in as a narrative. And in the case of Haiti, a lot of them came in as narratives through in Creole, and they would say,
which unfortunately nobody speaks, so you're kind of screwed.
Right. So there was multiple steps that had to happen that involved people, and someone had to translate. And someone had to, once it was translated to English, then someone else had to go through and parse through this narrative that the person typed, and because someone that when you're trapped in a building, you don't usually know what your longitude and latitude are. You don't usually say that your caloric intake has been lowered. You say, I'm on Smith Street, or I'm near I'm near the hotel that used to be next door, and I'm hungry or I'm thirsty. So to take these narratives and dice them down into data and then put them into a system, a database that can be mapped, so someone who can actually help this person and respond, the first responders, could go and find and lend them aid. And this is where the concept kind of has developed, is that there are things that can be done that will be helpful to someone who is on the ground,
sure.
that doesn't necessarily require someone getting up from their couch.
How would somebody become the mayor of a tsunami?
That's a good question. I wonder if we could give badges away to. It's a really interesting concept, because one of the things that has come out of this is an idea of the idea of crowdsourcing crisis is not new. It's relatively new, but Crisis Commons has been doing it for a while, and there are some other groups as well that have been doing really cool stuff with it. The newer thing that I discovered and that we one of the hackathon groups was working on is the idea called play sourcing, and this would be closer to what you were just joking about, which is actually playing games that
during a crisis
that actually help do some of these steps, help translate or help locate or help categorize a request.
Mm-hmm.
And so the idea is that if there's a crisis and thousands of these requests start coming in, that you could use your cell phone or an app on your iPhone or something on a game console that could pop up, and someone could start playing a simple game that maybe they could earn some virtual badges or
Sure.
points or some sort of credits that
Right.
either make them feel good or make them look good. To
Hey,
their
look,
friends.
I know that you're stuck on your roof in the flood, and there's no help in sight. But guess what? I'm going to water your crops on Farmville for you.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what we're talking about.
Worry not.
Your lands are secure. Your virtual lands are secure.
You are welcome, poor and disenfranchised, impoverished people.
So,
So who are the people we got on the line? I haven't even heard them talk yet.
Yeah. So I'm gonna first of all I think we've got Shannon O'Donnell on the line, and Shannon actually I dragged into this kind of kicking and screaming. She was in Bali.
Mm-hmm.
And when we first started talking about doing this tour, I realized that if Willow and I were going to be speaking, we were going to, and that was Shannon just dropping off because she doesn't want to talk. But Shannon, are you still on there? Damn, she did. She probably is on a cell phone. Ooh, maybe that's her again. Who just joined us?
I'm here. It dropped off just as you said my name.
I thought you hung up. So
No.
so Shannon's been doing. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you've been doing the last 3 years, Shannon?
So I sold a lot of what I owned, and I took off, and I've actually been backpacking around the world in a lot of countries that most people don't go to. So although I hit up Europe, I went to Nepal and India and Cambodia, and I volunteered in these locations. And I volunteered at orphanages. I taught English at a monastery. Worked with the indigenous community in Guatemala, and I've been learning the local culture, the languages, and part of the thing is because I'm a travel blogger, I work on the road from the internet. That's how I make my money. So I also have to find internet in all of these places and technology and communication. So I've been able to access, an internet connection, albeit a really weak one, but in Nepal, and 2 hours outside of Kathmandu, I hunted down the one internet guy who had power only 6 hours out of the day and was able to run an internet connection off of a generator for me some days. And, but it's there. The technology is there. So I was able to go into these communities and just see who's there, the culture, the people, help out, and also what level of technology and communication they have.
And so right as I was, I hadn't even really thought about what we were going to do. I made this announcement up at the two conferences, and Shannon was actually house sitting for me at the time, and was getting ready to move to Bali for about 6 months. She had decided that she was going to park in Bali for a while and live cheaply, and so. And Shannon's been helping for years. When we shot the Karaoke King, Shannon was one of the production. Really, she was like production coordinator for one of our shoots. And
yeah, which character was she in the movie? That's the only way I would know her.
She actually has.
You weren't the black gay guy, were you?
No. She actually has a cameo in the movie, in the Karaoke King.
Of course. Everybody does except me.
Everybody does except for you.
The hell.
We can still squeeze you in there. We haven't quite made the final cut. So So anyway, I asked Shannon to not go to Bali because I wanted help, and I knew that she could do, she could help, and she could also give perspective in ways that I didn't know because I'm like most Americans. I have not traveled out of the country much, and if I really wanted to sincerely help people in developing countries, mostly is what we're talking about. I mean, we need help. Sometimes we need help here, but generally the help is available. Most of what we're talking about is when help's not widely available. That Shannon was going to be able to give some perspective, and so I kind of she begrudgingly came back from Bali, and took a
No.
well, I mean, she took a little convincing. But she came on board the team and really helps shape a lot of the direction that the tour took, and so that's kind of why I wanted to bring her in on the call and introduce her. Although a lot of people who we visited already know Shannon well, so. Shannon, I wanted to ask you. You're in Los Angeles now, correct?
Yes.
And so Shannon also, one of the other cool
from Bollywood to Hollywood.
That's true. She's been talking also to her. She has a group of travel bloggers that travel and blog, and she's been talking a lot to them and soliciting feedback about what some of the challenges are, and she brought up one thing that a conversation she had. I guess that was in Boston. Who was the guy that you were talking to in Boston that brought up that really good point about the travel bloggers idea that we had?
His name's Ramdev.
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 Yeah. And what was he saying?
You mean about the technology and then who's there to implement it?
Yeah.
So our initial idea was to have the digital mountaintop where people could make requests. There was the water in the well example that you explained a lot. I also had an idea about in Nepal, they get power 8 hours of a day, but it's random 8 hours. And although there's supposed to be a schedule, there's not. So you get it in 4-hour blocks, and you never know what it was. And it was like, okay, could we create an application maybe to have the power schedule texted to people because they have cell phones? But that's an idea that I had, but I'm not in Nepal. And so these travel bloggers, although we could access them for, situations where they witness like this, who then implements it?
Right.
Once we move on, because we are nomadic in nature.
Right.
So you want to write an app to say, who's going to turn the power on in Nepal?
Well, could the company or it's the water in the well thing, is there a way for, the electric company to have the schedule and tweet it into us, and then, or text it into us, email, and then put it back out to the people, because the whole country gets power, but for only 4-hour blocks. And, there was a wood maker who lived right next door to me, and he would start up at midnight or 4 in the morning when the power came on. And the only way you know that is if you leave the lights on in your house. And so things like that. So, but go ahead.
Sorry, did you say a wood maker? Like a man who makes wood?
Worker.
A woodworker? Oh, okay.
No, well, he worked with wood. Sorry. He worked with wood. There was an electric saw going every night at midnight when the power was on. Because he only had power. Yeah, exactly. He lived right next door to me. And,
Pleasant.
He only had power. And he didn't know if it was going to come on at midnight or 4 in the morning. So what you had to do is leave all the lights in your house on, so that you would wake up at 4 in the morning to all the lights in your house on when the power knocked on, because you didn't know. But is there a way? I don't know if there's a way, but that was just an idea I had where, if somebody sitting at the electric company could go, hey, I feel like turning the power on at 8 o'clock this morning, that somebody else could access that data. But how do we get that? What happens then? I give the idea to the digital mountaintop, and I'm in Los Angeles right now.
Right.
In Nepal, literally to the mountaintop.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. And so, and the example that Shannon has given, just for those who might not have followed along, but initially I didn't have a full idea of what we were trying to ask people to do, so I just kind of made up some terms, and one of them was a digital mountaintop. And the idea behind the Digital Mountaintop is that we create an open communications platform that people can make requests for help from, that you can access globally, and then somehow there is a crowdsourced component where people are listening to those requests for help. We call that the Cloud Collective. And then the Water in the Well would be specific applications that get developed to help specific problems. And so when she was saying water in the well, she was describing these specific incident applications, whether it's a crisis related or a neglect related application. And that's kind of what we were developing with the hackathon, was tools that can better assist people in crisis situations. And so that's what we asked people to do.
Not just like the last person to leave Nepal, please turn the lights off.
Well, sometimes it can be as easy as that. Sometimes it's just a procedural thing that you need to do. Sometimes you don't even have to build an application. It can there are many ways that it can manifest itself. So, but I just wanted to thank Shannon for coming along with us on this crazy journey, and so anyway, Shannon, thanks.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for bringing me back from Bali to participate in our Because like you, I had no idea what crisis mapping was. I was in oblivion.
Yeah. It's a big world out there. So I think we've also got Chris. Are you still on the line?
Yes, I am. How are y'all?
Hey, Chris. So
Chris was like, I thought you'd never fucking get to me.
It's hard to get a word in edgewise, man. You guys are busy.
Yeah, surprisingly, this is what happens when I'm so sleep deprived I don't even know what day it is. I feel like I've just gone through a crisis myself. I know that that's silly to say because when people are actually hurting, or people are dying, but I really feel like a little bit of shell shock because I haven't slept much in the last 4 weeks. But Chris, I asked Chris to join in. Chris is a cool guy. He based out of Phoenix. He's just recently joined the Voxeo team in the Tropo team, and Chris came from a different background. And why don't you tell us a little bit about your background, Chris, and how you got involved?
Yeah, so about 10 years in the healthcare industry, building healthcare voice communications applications, internet applications, and at the beginning of this year, I had an idea and an opportunity to found a company called Teleku, which is a cloud-based communications platform, very similar to Tropo, who John was just talking about, and within 6 months, it was built, deployed, and acquired by Voxeo. So that was a fun ride, and now I'm helping Voxeo promote the Tropo platform and helping Geeks Without Bounds in any way that we can support their crisis mission through Tropo Communications as a platform. So anything we can do to help these goals, that's what we're all about right now.
And Chris, tell me a little bit about, because you have one of the things that kept coming up, and that we have yet to reach out to, but I've talked to Chris extensively about the ham radio operators, and. Tell me a little bit about your experience with ham radio and how you think that they might fit well into this puzzle.
Yeah, I think that they're one of your biggest allies in this mission, because that's the chief mission statement of the ham radio community. It's really helping out in times of disaster, and when there's not disaster or emergency needs, then the frequencies are available for what they call rag chewing, just talking with friends and family across the world. But in the United States, there are 750,000 licensed amateur radio operators.
Even more unlicensed.
And Yeah, but those are what we call pirate radio, and we're after
Ham
those
pirates.
folks all the time. But if you look at worldwide, though, I mean, there are millions of licensed ham operators worldwide that can communicate with each other, relay messages off the grid. So when your traditional internet connections, phone connections, et cetera, are down in times of crisis and emergency, there is a network of ham operators that is basically like a mesh network. I mean, they will get the signals passed, the messages passed anywheres in times of crisis. So they practice these drills all the time, and they are very much an ally in any crisis situation, and would love to network with other non-ham environments to relay messages across country bounds, etc.
Are there any can they transmit packet data through ham radio?
Yeah, ham radio is so advanced these days. I mean, they still have packet radio that can transmit at pretty low speeds, but dependable from one side of the globe to the other. But today, there's even new technologies where they're totally digital, even satellite communications, passing data node to node at like DSL speeds across the globe without the internet infrastructure, just a ham radio mesh infrastructure. Pretty amazing.
I was going to make a joke earlier about when you said, we're going to get the word out, by whatever means necessary. I was going to say by ham radio, and I'm glad I didn't do it because I would have sounded really stupid in retrospect. But it is surprising that there are still, ham radio operators in existence today, considering that the internet was invented to, as a means of communication if everything else fails, like in the event of a nuclear war. That's what it was. That's what it was commissioned for.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And what's interesting to me is that even in light of all of the internet advancements in technology and things we're doing today online, even Twitter, that the number of ham radio operators continues to grow. So I think there's a huge population of hobbyists that really enjoy radio communications, but also in times of crisis, they realize that this is the only dependable communications network, oldest and only communications network that is designed to operate in areas that even lose complete power.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know this, but there are an estimated 2 million people in the United States alone that still use rotary phones. They refuse to go to touch tone. I made that up completely.
Wow. I believe that there probably are rotary phones in existence. It's surprising. I don't know.
So thanks, Chris. Someone else who just joined the line, a gentleman by the name of James Carlson, who was also a ham radio operator. James, are you on there?
I am.
Oh, cool. James did something really, really cool for us, and kind of an unsung role in this. And as we went from these hacker spaces doing presentations, we needed a presentation to show them. So James is a very adept at a presentation package called Prezi. If you've never seen it, it's really cool. It's like it's like PowerPoint the way you want it to be, and it allows you to zoom in on things, and it's not non-linear. You can go in any direction, and
where do you want to go today?
Where do you want to go today? So anyway, James helped with that, but he does a lot more than that. He runs a couple of nonprofits, including a hackerspace in Milwaukee called BucketWorks, and so I wanted to ask James to come on and talk to us about BucketWorks and the School Factory, which is really another big part of why. What we talked about on this tour, which was getting these groups of hackers and makers that are around the country talking to each other in a better way. So James, why don't you talk a little bit more about what that's all about?
Sure. So the School Factory is a nonprofit organization I started in 2002, and I was actually, filling in the 501c3 paperwork, the federal tax-exempt paperwork for BucketWorks, which is a space I'd started. And I kind of, as I was writing in the name of BucketWorks, I sort of backspaced over that in my mind and thought, wait a minute, maybe I should incorporate the thing that will make more places like this. Thinking that later on, there'd need to be something that does that, something that makes these types of places where people gather and kind of work on their passions, work on their, technology, their arts, whatever it might be. And so sent in the paperwork, and, this was before terms like hackerspace and makerspace were starting to spread, and, there were really very few places where a person with a creative bent or a technical bent could kind of go and make stuff and play with stuff and learn stuff. And so I, started to do that, built BucketWorks up, which now, it's probably one of the bigger, in physical size anyway, spaces. It's 27,000 square feet in Milwaukee. We've got, a lot of different infrastructure for people to be creative and, not just focusing on technology, but really focusing on entrepreneurship and technology and the arts and these other things that bring together different populations under the same roof. And now that in the last year or two, there's been this incredible growth of hackerspaces and makerspaces, what we've been doing is working to connect them to each other. So we've built this thing we're calling Space Federation, just to be a little geeky, but giving these folks who run these spaces a chance to share some of the common stories. Each one of these places is really unique, has its own personality. There's Jigsaw Renaissance out in Seattle. That's one of our Federation members. It's got its own character, its own unique population of creative people. Pumping Station 1 in Chicago, Sector 67 in Madison that's opening on October 15th, actually. And several others that we're working with. But yet underneath all that, differentness and uniqueness, there's just a lot of common things. Everybody's got to pay rent. Everybody's got to find a way to get insurance, for example, which is really tough when you're saying, hey, we want to let people run power tools 24 hours a day, really dangerous ones, in this environment.
Really loud ones at midnight?
Yeah, loud ones and dangerous ones at midnight. And
sounds like Burning Man.
Yeah, kind of like an indoor sanctioned Burning Man. But, you've got...
That's how you should market it.
How do we explain that?
How do you explain that to an insurance adjuster?
Oh, the landlords will love that explanation. Just put burning in the name of anything you're trying to do in the building, and they'll go right for it.
Yeah, burning is probably just not something you want to mention when you're trying to sign a lease.
Right. But,
or going to the free clinic.
Types of challenges. Yeah. Occupancy permits, zoning restrictions, even things like access control, and giving, different mechanisms for letting people into and out of the building and getting members. And then ultimately, the real big purpose behind it and why we call it the School Factory is because, these places offer a really different and I think maybe more effective learning platform for students. And when we can start to, bring young people into an environment where they see adults who are really passionate, they're enjoying themselves, they're making things, and these young people can put their hands on tools and interact
really dangerous power tools, by the way.
Exactly.
Just let them go hog wild.
Yep. And also safer tools like cameras. We run a film festival here in Milwaukee for high school students, and we've been doing it for a few years. Last year we did it. We got 68 movies from kids all around the country, and they used anything from 2 VHS decks to do their editing, whatever they could get their hands on. And we surveyed them, and only 8% of them said that they had the tools at school to make a movie, which makes you wonder, how many kids at schools have access to a soldering iron in school, or have access to, Arduino microcontrollers at school, or have access to, advanced, digital editing platforms, and not only the tools, but also
pencils.
These passionate mentors, people who really are curious about these things, who can share their knowledge. And so our vision is to try to connect these spaces to each other and make them stronger so that they can reach out to schools across the country and start to bring some of that, science and technology, engineering, art, math, learning into schools in a way that kids will really get into and maybe stick with as they grow up. So it's been really, really interesting to see that happen here and see it start to happen everywhere else as this movement really starts to grow.
I think it's great. I actually had a really long conversation with an educator at the ICCM conference, and talking about the need for a revolution in how we educate our children, because it's becoming apparent that they're not really learning skills that are useful.
They're learning how to pass tests.
They're learning how to pass tests. Yeah, and that's.
But that's how everybody's been taught. So, if the Great Generation, came up that way, did they just get great by accident? Because I totally agree that the educational system is fucked, and they need to come up with a different approach to teaching. And I think that you have a wonderful opportunity to kind of be a secondary, educational system. Okay. The regular, K through 12 isn't going to change probably much in our lifetime, but if they say, okay, I go to this school and I know I got to pass a test here, but then I have this other place that I go to where I'm actually learning. You could subvert, the educational system as it is. I think it's primed for that, and I think that's kind of what changes.
Definitely.
Is to try to do.
That's the plan.
That is noble.
We want to do that. I mean, in the future, maybe in 2020, when people say school, they just won't mean what they mean today. They won't mean a fenced-in place that is only open during the day and where there's only students and teachers, but they'll mean this community environment where there's entrepreneurs, makers, students. It's open 24/7. The lights are on at night.
Mm-hmm.
There's stuff going on there. Families are there. People are there working during the day alongside students, more than one generation. I think that's the future of learning environments for us. And we need it now. I mean, we really need it now because, to your point, kids aren't learning the skills they need. And most of us are, in these types of communities, and we sort of take a lot of that stuff for granted, using a wiki, for example, collaboratively editing something, doing a digital conference, blogging.
Mm-hmm.
These are all things that we just do, and most schools don't even know how to start teaching those skills.
Yeah, I mean that's a great example. And most of us who know how to do this stuff are self-taught. I mean, I didn't go to school and learn how to write some code that is allowing us to do a multi-party conference call using Skype and you streaming it over the internet simultaneously.
I doubt there's any schools that even care to teach that, really.
Yeah, but I mean, they're valuable skills, and
of course, you know what I'm saying. It's sad. It's a sad indictment of our system that they don't care. But move the cattle through.
I think some of them do.
Yeah.
Some of them do, but the challenge is too is what cares or who's doing the caring is usually an individual teacher. There's a lot of individual teachers out there that care about this stuff and learn it on their own. Especially as we see folks in different generations are entering the teaching field, and they're trying to change it. But they're individual islands working in a great sea of let's just do what we've always done. And there's a lot of good stuff going on in the charter school movement. There's a lot of good stuff going on in alternative school movements, and I think if we all work together, we can actually get. Because I still think it's a good thing that anybody can get an education. It just has to be a good one. It has to be a useful one, and that's what I'd like to see happen. So.
Well, appreciate that, James, and thanks for your help along this, and we look forward to your continued support as we move forward and figure out what this thing is. My
pleasure.
And thanks for the Prezi, incredibly helpful.
Is there any way you could see an example of the Prezi?
The Prezi that actually I will resubmit it, but if someone goes to the Geeks Without Bounds Twitter feed, probably two days ago we sent out a link to the Prezi as it is now. It's GWOBorg. GWOBorg is a Twitter stream, and you can see that there. I don't know if James has an easier way to get to one, but that's one sure way. And when we're done with this, I will re-put that out there, and it'll be up on the GWOBorg website as well. So thanks, James. I also just saw that we have Kip Silverman on the line. Kip, are you there?
Hey guys, yes I am.
Hey Kip,
what's up, Doug?
How's it going? I just last time I saw Kip was not too long ago in Portland, but when I first started talking about this idea, about Geeks Without Bounds, Kip was attending the Gnome Dex conference, and Kip works at a very large company. And one of the components that I talked about was the idea of a mobile backpack network that in times of crisis, people could have a mobile network that could communicate with GSM phones or some sort of communications method. And you could hand these phones out. They're charged and ready to go, and now you've got people who can communicate to this digital mountaintop that I've been describing, this communications hub to make requests or allocate resources. And so I described this, and the very first person who stood up when we did a Q&A after this at Gnome Dex was Kip, and Kip has been helping us tremendously along the way.
He's like, check this out. Backpack turns into a transformer.
Exactly. And he popped out of the audience and
full control center.
Kip, why don't you talk a little bit about what you've been discovering, and what the challenges that you've discovered and some of the successes you've had.
It's like, check this Prezi.
Yeah, I don't have a Prezi yet, but yeah, thanks, Johnny. I was sitting there at Gnome Dex listening to Johnny speak, and literally while he was talking, I was drafting my next round of ideas for conversations with people at the big company I work for, to hopefully help them adopt this idea. And then my head popped up when I heard the GWOB story and GWOBorg story, and I was like, ooh, I need to talk to this guy. So for about a year and a half, almost 2 years, I've been working on a idea that I'm calling it instant infrastructure access, to give people in times of dire need, natural disaster, emergency, the ability to communicate with first responders and relief organizations, where any number of scenarios where there's absolutely no infrastructure whatsoever, everything's been wiped out or never existed, up to tapping into existing infrastructure services and so on. I've spoke with several different relief organizations to get input from their senior technologists who all like the idea. There are various projects out there that are doing one form of capability similar to another. All of them so far require a degree of expertise and knowledge on how to get things going. And what Johnny and I were talking about were this has to be dirt simple. You need not to know how to program anything, how to set anything up. You just turn it on and
just take the red pill.
Make it something that exactly just communicate. So in all these different conversations, I've got some doses of reality, which have been great in helping to shape the direction of this. I think it providing this capability, and again, at different levels, all the technology we need to do already exists. It's a matter of bringing together the right parties to have the conversation and put it together to something actually usable. I have some people in my own organization who are interested in this, so I'm excited about that. I can't really say that they're not 100% committed to it yet, so I can't really go into details.
Is there a reason why you... Sorry, is there a reason, like, are you not allowed to say the company that you work for?
Well, I work for Intel Corporation.
Oh, okay,
so,
all right.
And I can absolutely say whom I work for. My effort on this is not an Intel-sponsored effort, though. So I don't want to say, Intel's backing this, so on and so forth.
Right.
That's not the case. There are several different groups in Intel that say, hey, our technology would be great. So it's kind of the onus is on me and other folks involved, like in GWOBorg, to work with the different organizations they do to get a degree of momentum that will hopefully say, hey, let's pull these resources together and make some of this stuff happen.
Yeah,
so at some point,
Kip is sort of our geek on the inside, cheering for us on the inside of Intel.
Awesome.
Absolutely. I think there's so much, even in the conversations I've had, I've talked with Mercy Corps and Red Cross, I've exchanged emails with different folks in the space. Everyone I talk to says you need to go talk to so-and-so because they'd be interested. And I think GWOBorg is in a unique position, and I apologize, I just called in, so I didn't get the beginning of this podcast, but I think GWOBorg is in a unique position with the personalities and the talents being involved in it to help promote this as a capability to reach out and pull in the different proponents and advocates we need to organize things to actually start happening in this space. And that's the thing that I hear most is that while all the organizations coordinate with each other, they don't have necessarily the expertise to optimize that process. And that is where I think our capabilities can come into play in saying, hey, you've got what equipment? Well, yeah, we can do X, Y, Z with that. You need what piece of software to be able to communicate with these guys? Yeah, we know some hackers who can throw that together. And this is the power of this entire, call it a movement, if you would.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I've discovered in talking to the different groups of hackers is that they know what. I mean, if you give, I'll use the Apollo 13 example.
Right.
When they're running
out
out
of canister to fit into a
they're running out of oxygen, and they've got all these parts, and they've got to get from the round hole to a square hole, with all of these things in front of you, and that you put that in front of your average geek, and he will rise up to that challenge. And that's that passion that we're trying to tap into that I think we all have, and that I think it really gets people excited when we talk about this.
Yeah, absolutely. And just at GNOME-DEX alone, every place we went, every time we turned around and talked about GWOBorg and the idea behind it, people jumped up and went, ooh, tell me what you're doing, keep me posted, talk to this guy.
Yeah.
Have you heard of this technology? And the passion is incredible.
Yeah, it's great. Hey, thanks for joining us, Kip. I'm gonna try real quick. Patrick Meyer, who has been he's been trying to call in, and for some reason having some technical difficulty. I'm gonna try to put the conference on hold and then bring him in. So if this fails miserably, guys, I apologize. But Patrick is he is founded Ushahidi, which is a company who built a crisis mapping software initially for Kenya, but they used it extensively in Haiti, and I really want to talk to him. So hang on just a second.
I think it's going to be easier for him to call
can I do that? Call on hold and then say start conference call.
Try dialing.
So, okay. Hang on.
I'm sad your friend from Intel couldn't stay on a little bit longer because I wanted to talk to him about the graphene chip that I've designed and made a prototype of.
Hello.
Hey, hi there.
Hey, Patrick, how's it going?
It goes. How are you?
I'm doing well. Let me see if this is actually going to work. I don't know if I'm going to be able to bring. Let's see. And all right, is everybody there?
Yes.
I don't know if everybody else can hear me. Anyway, well, at least Patrick can hear me.
Yep, still here.
Okay, they're there. Okay, great. We got everybody. All right, cool.
Still hear myself.
Amazing technology that we have at our fingertips. So yeah, as I started to introduce Patrick, Patrick's the founder of Ushahidi. Tell me about what Ushahidi is, Patrick.
I'd be happy to. Thanks. So Ushahidi is a group that has developed a free and open source platform for collaborative mapping, but not just any kind of mapping, but live mapping, not only of events, but also of assets and resources. So we're a nonprofit tech company that comes out of Africa. We first came to be during the post-election violence in Kenya a couple of years back, where we developed this first approach to crowdsourcing crisis information using collaborative mapping.
And so this is kind of new concept for a lot of the geeks that I've been talking to. So can you give us a practical, for example, how this actually works in a situation and how it gets from someone who needs help into the hands of someone who actually can help somebody?
Sure. So I mean, the first thing to note is we really are a tech company, even though we're a nonprofit. So we develop the tools and the platforms for others to use around the world. And so one can download the Ushahidi platform. Like I said, it's simply like a map and allow people to their own mapping. So we're trying to democratize the idea of mapping. And to give you an example, perhaps from Haiti, what happened was we helped launch the Ushahidi map of Haiti and created a live map of Haiti based on needs and events that were being reported on the mainstream media and the social media. But we then partnered with some other groups, including the Fletcher School at Tufts University and some colleagues with Frontline SMS and Stanford University, and set up a short code in Haiti that allowed anybody inside Haiti to text in their most urgent needs and their location to us in real time. And then we worked with a large number of Haitian diaspora members who were translating these text messages from Creole to English. And then we were having hundreds of other volunteers helping to georeference the location of these needs. So that was one example of a movement coming out using the Ushahidi platform and other platforms within that ecosystem, namely OpenStreetMap and a few others. So the idea was you had the volunteers were able to collaborate and connect and provide this kind of live map that, according to the Marine Corps and Coast Guard, were instrumental in helping them do their search and rescue operations and so on.
And so one of the events that I had the pleasure of participating in last week was the International Conference of Crisis Mappers in Boston, which Patrick put together. Can you tell me about? There were some really big organizations involved with this with that conference, Patrick. How did you get? How does one get the head geek of the UN to be a keynote at his conference?
I think this conference is only 2 years old. So in the sense that this was simply the second International Conference of Crisis Mapping. We had the first one last year, and the first one was basically the culmination of a 2-year program at the Harvard Humanitarian Initiative that I had co-directed with my colleague Jennifer Leaning. It was a program in crisis mapping and early warning, and we spent 2 years looking at this area. I mean, nobody was using the term crisis mapping at the time at all, but we were really interested in the possibilities of these new technologies that were coming out, and realizing that the humanitarian and to some extent the human rights community was lagging quite far behind in terms of adapting and adopting these technologies for their own purposes. And we had a hunch that mapping could be one of those entry points into this idea of humanitarian technology. And sure enough, after 2 years, we had clearly seen that there were a number of connections forming already, and that there was a community there that wasn't really formal or anything, but that was starting to evolve. And so what we decided to do was end this 2-year program in crisis mapping with a conference, and not just to say this is the end of the program, but we used that conference to launch this international network of crisis mappers, which brings together about 1,000 members who are involved directly or indirectly in crisis mapping. And I think what's been amazing was really just that the idea of crisis mapping has appealed to a very broad audience, from the UN to NGOs to members of the public, volunteer groups, senior policymakers, human rights and seasoned humanitarian practitioners, the technology community, both the private sector and nonprofit groups, and then obviously the research and academic community. And I just think that the crisis mapping conference and then the network simply provided people as a way to identify with this area, and then helped form connections that have gone all the way to the top in terms of the UN, with the UN Secretary General's office. So I think it's simply, there's always been an interest, but I think there hasn't really been a formalizing of this interest and a platform that can allow people to connect. And then on top of that, a conference that 300 plus individuals could come and actually share information.
Yeah, it was amazing. A group of people. Every time I turned around, I found myself engaged. Literally every time I turned around, engaged in a different amazing conversation with someone else who was approaching crisis situations from a different angle, and it was very exciting to see. So I want to thank you for the tremendous work that you've been doing, and also the assistance that you've given us as newcomers in the field to help guide us in understanding what the reality is.
You're very kind, and this is definitely not a one-person effort. The International Network of Crisis Mappers is an opt-in volunteer type network. It's people who are passionate about this, and we had dozens of people helping out, volunteers with the conference. So I think in terms of the broader narrative here, the Crisis Mappers Network, it's not a formal institution. It's not a 501c3. It's not a for-profit. It's simply an informal network of, I think, highly passionate individuals who can show that, when they're linked in the right ways, can make all the difference. So there's this broader narrative of saying that, volunteers can be very good at what they do. They bring in some core skills, and they can also make things happen, even if there's not a paycheck at the end of the day.
Absolutely. I wanted to talk to you real quick. I was hoping to have Sean Connor on, but I think that he was up all night participating in the hackathon and might be sleeping right now. But one of the things
I've been hacking for 24 hours.
That was Sean Connery.
Oh.
But Sean and I have been talking for the past few days about the concept of play sourcing, and I know that he said that he talked to you, Patrick, about it too. And I wanted to get your take on it, what you think about that idea of people being able to use games, simple games, to help others in times of need.
Sure, it's an interesting area that I think both Sean and I stumbled across independently. I had written a blog post earlier this year on this idea, and then he immediately got in touch, and then we've had many hours of really, I found really interesting conversations about the possibilities. And it comes also from this TED Talk that was given earlier this year, I believe, that Sean had shared with me, and that showed how many billions of hours were being spent on playing computer games every week, and the number of gamers around the world just being in the hundreds of millions apparently. And then suggesting, well, that's a lot of information processing that goes on there, and people are really interested in playing computer games, and there's incentive and so on. And so we started thinking about, coming from the experience of Haiti and Chile with the Ushahidi platform, where the most time-consuming parts of them were doing the training for individuals. Even though it was half-an-hour training, the fact that we trained several hundred people, it did add up. But after the training, the volunteers were spending a lot of time, on the translation of text messages, on the tagging of text messages based on whatever categories they represented, and on the georeferencing. And when I got started thinking about how we could make this process easier, the idea of gaming came to mind. And lo and behold, in a way that's already happening in terms of the microtasking world and in terms of Mechanical Turk services, the company Crowdflower, based out of San Francisco, is doing incredibly well. A for-profit company that's doing incredibly well in terms of revenues and clients, and farming out micro tasks for their clients. And some of the micro tasks that they farm out, they actually farm out to online games. And what they do is, in return for the tasks that are completed, they give gamers more gaming currency in whatever games they are playing. So that's
Fat
actually
loot.
a concept. Sorry?
Fat loot. Not a gamer, I guess. Never mind.
But anyway, so I think it's great. I think we could. I think this is worth exploring, and it's why Sean Connor has been pressing ahead to see if perhaps we could find some kind of plugin or develop some kind of plugin for the Ushahidi platform that allowed us to leverage those millions of individuals who play computer games every day.
And thanks for that, Patrick, and thanks for joining us. It's kind of a good segue. For the last 24 hours, we've been hosting a hackathon, and one of the groups actually was working on a play sourcing game to get data into Ushahidi using making it so you could go to a website or access via Twitter or SMS messages and help either categorize, geolocate, or there was a third thing, or to basically need requests that come in. These are all fake requests, obviously, not real requests, but I really think that there's some cool things that can be done in that respect. So I'm looking forward to working more with that. But I think that it's time that we announce the winners of the hackathon. We had, like I said, over 100. I think there were 108 people registered, developers, coders. From over 46 organizations, and there were 8 different countries represented.
Now, John, I probably should have asked this at the beginning, but you keep bringing up the hackathon,
right?
or hacking conference.
Mm-hmm.
Are people actually hacking at these conferences, and if so, what are they hacking, or is it just a group of hackers that talk about?
No, they're actually coding. They're not. When we say hacking, I guess there can be the negative connotation of hacking, which is the idea that you're breaking into somebody else's system and gumming up the works.
But then there's like Black Hat, which is also like they're still doing the same thing, but just for good.
Right. But really, we should call these developer-thons or codathons because
that's not sexy.
Yeah, it doesn't have quite the ring of hackathon. So, well, actually, it's funny because when we did one of these up in Seattle, and I called the hotel and I said we did an open government hackathon. That's what I told the girl, and she goes, wait, you want to hack the government openly? And I'm like, maybe I'm not. We actually ended up calling it a Tinker Storm, which Chris Perillo actually thought of.
take as well. But I think the whole hacking concept is another education opportunity we have.
Yeah, absolutely. So we got all these groups together. A lot of them participated at hacker spaces in the U.S. We had a group in Seattle. We had a group in Milwaukee. We had a group in Chicago. We had a group in New York. Participating in hackerspace. We had other individual participants. We had some groups from the Sahana Foundation, which is another crisis tool similar to what Patrick was talking about, Ushahidi, but another open source platform.
One person at the bottom of a well in Nepal.
Some people in some toxic sludge in the
goat herder,
and so we had when it boiled down to the end, we had there were two sponsors of the hackathon. One was Tropo, and Tropo provides an API that allows you developers to hook their web applications to phone calls, or Twitter or SMS, and so it really has the ability to kind of burst open a previously existing dam that kept web applications confined to computer screens, and makes them instantly available to a variety of other means.
Mm-hmm.
And so we thought it'd be really cool to take and challenge people to take these platforms that are collecting the data, like Ushahidi and Sahana, and figure out how to connect them through Tropo so they can access Twitter, and suddenly they can collect this data through a wider variety of means, and potentially open up to a different group of developers that write applications for the phone. So one of the things that I realized rather quickly was that when I looked at some of the data that they used, that they were collecting in Ushahidi, they were free-form text messages. And from my background, I come from unified messaging. We did iPost, and I've been collecting data for sweepstakes entries for 5 or 6 years now. And I'm just thinking to myself, man, if I collected my data for sweepstakes entries through free-form text messages and then had to translate and parse through the data to find out the person's address and date of birth and zip code, it would be impossible. I couldn't have built a business around that. So I know
definitely take up your nights and weekends.
I would definitely, I wouldn't be able to be playing piano nearly as much as I do now. And so I started talking to some of the guys at Voxeo that I work with, and we do. It's all unified self-service communication stuff. It's all about letting people help themselves through menu systems, and so we started talking about this idea about how we could help better collect this data through menu systems, and so there's some areas where I think that we've got a chance to improve them, so we challenged developers to work on some applications. We actually had initially we had $3,000 prizes that Tropo has offered. Actually, 10 prizes, $10,000 or $1,010, and then Heroku, who's they do a cloud-based Ruby hosting. They offered a $1,000 prize as well, and so we had at the end of the 24 hours, we had about 6 groups that had developed something that was in some sort of a completed manner. We had a lot of people that participated but didn't really get to the point where they had something working by the deadline.
Slackers.
So, I know. So we
slacker hackers.
We extended one of the deadlines. So Tropo has extended one of the prizes to next week to allow for groups that maybe got started but didn't have the resources or didn't know exactly what they're getting themselves into, to give them some more time to finish their app. So one of the prizes, one of the $1,000 prizes, is going to we're going to announce next week. Two of them we've picked two winners, and the Heroku prize we've also picked as well. And so I don't know if we have any of those groups on the phone call right now. Is anybody who would participate in the hackathon on the phone? I hear someone grabbing. Maybe yes, no.
This is Chris. Yeah, I didn't actively participate. I was in the IRC channels, and I can tell you, the applications I've seen coming out of there, and the excitement and just focused on building applications has been truly amazing to be a part of. So I think hats off. You guys have done a fantastic job bringing talented people together for a good cause.
Yeah, I think that this was this was our first effort in this arena, and as far as the Geeks Without Bounds goes, but I think we're going to do more. I think that or maybe in the future we might try to do some sort of a simulation. It's been joked about doing a simulated zombie attack, and
that's so played out.
Well,
I'll tell you what, I got courtesy of the Channel Project, $20 for the first person to come up with a ham radio iPhone app.
A ham radio iPhone app.
Yep, that's what I want.
You want a ham radio iPhone app? Okay. Well, $20 goes to the first person.
We do. This is Chris. We do have an app that was produced a couple of months ago that allows you to tweet from your ham radio. So I think we're getting closer and closer to merging those networks.
So one of the $1,000 prizes, one of the groups built a really cool plugin. Well, it's not really a plugin, but extension for who just joined us.
Hey, this is SciTech from Alpha One Labs.
Hey, how's it going? We were
good. How are you?
Good. I was just getting ready to announce that. So one of the applications that was developed did was fantastic. It really extended. Sahana is one of these free and open source disaster management tools that was developed in response to initially the tsunami in the Indian Ocean, and what this group did was take and extend the Sahana platform, and they did three really cool things. They allowed Sahana to extend. They used Tropo, which allowed Sahana to extend its presence over instant messaging, Twitter, and SMS, and allows anyone to make simple queries into the Sahana database via any of these methods. So if someone wanted to check the status of a hospital facility, let's say there are hospitals that are available, and some have beds that are available, or what the security status is, or even what the phone number is, you can make a text message, send an SMS message, or a tweet, or and send those messages and get the status of the hospital. They also set it up so you can look for a person in the same way, or an organization. And I thought that this was, even though this wasn't the sexiest application that was developed, just the pure power of extending Sahana into these new methods, I thought deserved one of the prizes. So I'm happy to say that that the folks who developed the Sahana Eden application, they're going to win one of the $1,000 or $1,010 prizes, and Sahana Foundation, their nonprofit, is going to receive the second half of the prize, which we had dedicated to the organizations that they were participating with. In their case, Sahana, and that group was Fran Boone and the other name of the person I cannot find, but they were based in India. So anyway, congratulations to them. The second prize that I'm going to announce here, seeing as is it who joined us from Alpha One?
This is SciTech from Alpha One.
Hey, how's it going? So why don't you tell me a little? You still there?
Yep.
Okay. Why don't you tell me a little bit about your app and how you got involved and what you decided to do with what you did with your geolocation app?
Sure. You guys came over and did the talk at the 10-10-10 preparation talk after the Maker Faire, and I asked you guys what you wanted, and it seemed like you just wanted some integration between everything, and pretty much bottom line, it's crisis mapping. So I looked around at the other apps that they have, and they didn't really seem real time that I wanted. So I decided to make a real time map follower. So it searches Twitter for the word crisis, which could be set up to be anything. It could be crisis with a specific latitude and a specific emergency code or something. And then what it does is it instantly maps them onto a full-size Google Maps application.
And what were the tools? This used Tropo.
Yep, I linked up with Tropo, and then we have some Usahini linked up, and the other one, Sahana,
yeah.
And link those all together. Yep. And so you can
now
get the data into that application anyway.
What code runs the backend?
It's just JavaScript and HTML.
Okay.
It's pretty, and then the Google Maps API, and that just links up. It's a PHP application.
Cool. So I'm happy to say that you guys are the happy winners of one of the iPads.
Yes. So awesome.
We're gonna get that. We're gonna get that sent up to you, and I'll follow up afterwards. But I really liked the simplicity of that app, and it's actually something that that I was thinking would be a really cool app for the Geeks Without Bounds is to look for certain tags that people are putting in that aren't necessarily emergency related, but something that
could be anything.
Yeah, exactly. So I would like to talk to you more about how we can use that, and I think that's going to be a great application to have in our repository, that we can maybe make a little front end that lets someone just put in, okay, these are the keywords I'm looking for, and then start putting them on maps.
Yeah. Very cool. I'll make sure I get the latest code into the GitHub account and have that link.
Great. Thank you very much for your participation.
Awesome. Thank you, Pat.
The other and one of the probably the most impressive, and maybe it's just because their graphics are so cool. One of the groups that participated out of Portland came up with an application called Loqime, Loqime. And you can actually go to it's loqi.me, then their website, and try it out. This
I'm gonna hop off. We're listening to you guys at the lab.
All right, thanks.
Today.
Thanks. this app will allows mobile phone users to send an emergency GPS beacon to their real-time map. So if you have a phone that has GPS, all you have to do is go to the website. It'll pop up a little thing on your iPhone and say, they would like to know your location, and then it comes up with a text box, and you can type in what your need is, and then it pops that onto a map. And so this morning when I was testing it, at 7 in the morning, I just woken up after getting about 3 hours of sleep, and I typed that I had a coffee crisis. I needed coffee immediately. And sure enough, immediately it's there on the map. And then on the opposite side of it, you can send, if you send a text message to...
You need the latitude and longitude of the nearest Starbucks.
Stat. So if you can also send a text message to the number that they have on their website, 202-618-0872, and type join, and then that would be an example of how a responder might use the app, and they would get then a stream of the geolocated tags of the requests that come in. And so they kind of showed both ends on how it could work. They didn't hook it into any of the platforms, but with a little tiny bit of glue, this could very easily hook into either Ushahidi and Sahana. So I strongly encourage everyone to check out Loki Me. That was put together by Amber Case and Aaron. Can't think of
Rokovich?
hang on, let me see if I can find his name.
Where did the name Tropo come from? Because in Italian it means like too much.
Too much. Well, Tropo came from, it's short for troposphere, so it's like the clouds. It's the area around the Earth where all the clouds are, and it's cloud-based communication. So
clever.
Yes, yeah. So thank you. I thought of it myself. Not true at all. So Amber and Aaron, congratulations! You are winners of the other $1,010 prize, and I believe your hacker space, NedSpace, will also be receiving. I think that they're part of NedSpace in Portland. If I could be wrong about that, I need to go back and check, but they will be receiving another $1,000 for the space to use whatever they want.
It's a month's supply of Starbucks right there.
Sure is. The other prizes we are going to hold off until we have other qualified apps that come in. There are two groups. One, the group in Jigsaw in Seattle, working on the place sourcing app. They want
to play a game.
They want to. They're going to hopefully get theirs up and running. We extended one of the deadlines for the prizes till next week, and we're going to say we'll say 10 a.m. on 10 a.m. Pacific time next Sunday will be the new deadline for to qualify for the remaining prizes. And I think that the Bucketworks group also had a really cool app that they were working on to coordinate people with certain blood types up with blood banks that needed those types, which I thought was a really cool idea.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's kind of what I've got. The thing that I've learned the most over the past 6 weeks is that there's not a simple solution to this. There's not here's the killer application that's going to solve all these problems.
It doesn't sound simple.
No, it's not. In really, when I started thinking about what is this announcement that we're going to make on 10-10-10, I realized that that Geeks Without Bounds is the group of people that you just heard from, and a few more that couldn't participate today. But it's the individuals that are actually out there making a difference, that are talking to people and building the applications and solving the problems in real ways that I think are making a difference. And I wish that I could come here and say, listen, I've developed the killer application that's going to solve all the problems, and no one is ever going to die again due to a catastrophe or neglect or violence. But we know that's not the case. We can only do a better job of taking the tools and making them better, and help educate people better, and help communicate between the different groups that are doing great work in a faster and more efficient way.
Well, it's really an amazing and impressive group of people that you've had on on the conference call today, and I'm sure I haven't even heard a fraction of the people that you have involved with it. But I know that you get a group of people like this, like-minded tech people, problem solvers together. There's no reason why they shouldn't have been able to come out with an iPhone jailbreak today. I've been waiting for weeks for the 4.1 jailbreak.
It just didn't happen. It just didn't.
Come on,
happen.
Geeks without
bounds.
Geeks without bounds.
I think also that I'm gonna take this moment to say that we're gonna do a podcast like this on a regular basis. I think we're gonna focus on this area, a Geeks Without Bounds podcast, and Ryan's looking at me right now, going, "Really?"
I love it.
Yeah. So I think that there's an opportunity here to continue the conversation, and I thank everyone who has participated and helped along the way. Tropo has been an amazing sponsor who just paid for all the travel that we did. Heroku, who also sponsored the hackathon, thank you for that. All of the Chris Perillo and Jeff Pulver, who let me take their stages at their conferences, and Patrick, who invited me to come to the ICCM conference, and the Heathers at the Crisis Commons that have been just amazingly supportive all of the way. And
special thanks to Violent J from the Insane Clown Posse for setting up the communications today.
Yes,
good job.
That was a great job. And last but not least, the team that went on the tour, the 10-10-10 Flux Capacitor.
That's a great name.
The amazing thing is we have really cool T-shirts that Remixed, the guys over at Remixed designed. We initially talked about doing plans of a party and all this stuff, and I realized as we got closer that, one, I didn't have time to plan all these things because we were traveling at tremendous light speed, and two, I wanted to continue doing it, and so I didn't want to spend our budget of, we could spend $20,000 on a big party, or we could spend $20,000 and go and talk to some hackerspaces in Europe, or in Asia, or and connect the dots internationally. So I think that
or you could have a whole wall of iPads.
I could have a lot of iPads.
40 iPads on a wall.
But yeah, lastly, I wanted to thank Shannon, who was a tremendous help along the tour, and Willow, who is, I hope, sleeping right now, who just did amazing job of helping get us from the point where, after I got off the stage in Seattle, to her saying, "How are you actually going to do this?" and me turning to her and saying, "I have no idea." And she kind of she said, "All right, let's figure this out." And so we've been taking baby steps along the way. So thank you guys for your support. This is not the end. This is the beginning. We're Geeks Without Bounds, and we're signing off right now.
Check the Pressy. still haven't been able to see the Chris Perillo thing.
Oh no.